Hey there, and welcome to A Well-Rounded Life, the podcast, a space for creative entrepreneurs seeking an intentional life and biz filled with grace, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Jamira. I'm a mama, wife, dessert fanatic, and on the ultimate mission to get you closer to your idea of what it means to live a well-rounded life. Right here is where you'll find curated resources, quick tips, and relatable stories, no matter what season of life you're in. So hang out with me for a bit and let's dive in. Hey there, friend. Jamira here, and I'm so glad we are hanging out today. This episode is one that I know will inspire someone who is feeling a little bit out of their element and knowing that they need to make a change, a shift, and actually start walking in their purpose. I am hanging out with Candice Coppola today. Candice is one of my friends that I have known for over a decade at this point in the wedding and event space. She is a former wedding planner like me turned coach, also a podcaster, and someone that I go to when I have any questions because she is a wealth of information, so kind and always willing to share. Candice is someone that I tap to talk about being brave enough to go after a fresh start, and just doing something radical when you know you need to start walking in your purpose. If you are hanging out with Candice and I today, make sure you screenshot, tag us, and I'm at Coach for Creatives, and let us know if you love this episode, which I really hope you do. If you are new around here, I just want to say welcome and thank you for taking the time to cozy up and listen in on a conversation that is so good. I'm going to read Candice's bio before I bring her to the mic. And again, DM us. Let us know that you are hanging out because we love connecting with you guys over on Instagram. All right. So let me tell you about my friend Candice. Candice Coppola is an author, podcast host, business coach, and entrepreneur. As a successful entrepreneur who grew a business from the spare bedroom of her home into a multi-country, multi-six-figure company, it's safe to say she's navigated the bumpy road of entrepreneurship. She started her first company, Jubilee Events, during the Great Recession in 2008. With no experience and no contracts, she grew it into a recognizable brand and team. Over 12 years, she worked with clients from all over the world and produced events in excess of $1 million. She launched the Power and Purpose podcast in 2018, a show that explores how to build a profitable business with purpose and the stories behind successful entrepreneurs who have. Candice and her audience dig in and have meaningful conversations about business and life as they explore the strategies and techniques that build profitable businesses. Her podcast sits on the Apple Podcast charts as one of the top 100 podcasts in the entrepreneur category. It's a pretty dope podcast, by the way. Candice's work and voice can be seen in many publications, but most recently and most notably in her two books, The White Dress in Color, Inspirations for the Modern Bride, and The White Dress Destinations, Definitive Guide to Planning the New Destination Wedding. Her favorite color is pink, like mine. She is obsessed with all things skincare and Bravo TV, and she's always overdressed and now lives in beautiful Barbados with her husband and two pups. I love Candice, and I know you will too. So let's welcome Candice to the show. Hey, Candice, welcome to the show.
Jamira, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited that I get to just sit down and chat with you today.
Same here. We had a conversation a little while ago and we said we wanted this to legit be a casual, authentic conversation. And so people can hear your story and already know you're going to be a blessing to others. And so I'm excited for this time because you are one busy lady. I do know that, but just making such a huge impact. And I'm excited for people to hear all that you're doing in your story. So we're going to have some fun today.
Yes, I totally agree. And thanks for saying that.
All right, Candice. So introduce yourself to our well-rounders.
Well-rounders, hi, I'm Candice Coppola. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for 13 years. It's hard for me to count now. I feel like I'm too old to properly count the number of years. I've been in business 13 years. I started my first business back when I was 26, and I've had a wild ride in business. These days, I help entrepreneurs build and grow their business. And I'm the host of the Power and Purpose podcast, 2-time published author, and super fan of Jamira. I've known her for over a decade. So this is like two old ladies getting down and talking and reminiscing about life. And I'm really excited for you to hear my story.
Yes, we have known each other for a very long time.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because we both have transitioned into the coaching space, and we are both former wedding planners, and we're really, really deep into the wedding planning industry. We're still very connected, you as a coach to other planners, and me as a coach to people in the industry still. So we met over a decade ago at a conference, and we're still connected to a lot of those people. And when I met you, you were a wedding planner based out of Connecticut. And so I want you to set the scene and describe to me what your life looked like way back then when we first met.
Oh gosh, we're going back in time. But I think we met, I think I was 26 when we first met. I was really fresh to the scene. And you and I and several other women really bonded over our businesses at a conference. And it was such a blessing to my business and continues to be. But I was really new to entrepreneurship. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I'd never planned a wedding in my life, but I had this desire to be a business owner and to be a wedding planner. So I was living in Connecticut. I was married to my first husband. We'll talk about it. And, I was living the dream. I started to scale and grow an incredible business beyond my wildest expectations. I was working with great customers. I was in charge of really amazing events. I started to build and grow a team. I was checking off all the boxes, Jamira, all the boxes that people say they want. I was happy. I owned my own home. I was making a living doing something that I loved. I was building a brand that was recognized, not just in Connecticut, but in far reaching places more nationally. I was on the precipice of getting my first book deal with my publisher, Schiffer Publishing. I was collaborating with people. I was traveling all over the dang world, Paris, Costa Rica, New Orleans. I was just catching flights and going places and creating. I was in magazines. I was doing tons of styled photo shoots. I was being commissioned as a designer for photo shoots for magazines. So when I say like on paper, everything I was doing was the dream. It was beyond my wildest expectations. And it's the dream that I see so many people that I help build and grow their business want. I was living the dream, but I think we all know where the story is going because I live in Barbados now and I sold my business. So there's a lot of things that happened during that time. And then, of course, after I had to make some really hard decisions.
It's interesting because, like you said, as an outsider, you were killing it. I was like, damn, Candice is out here, like you said, doing events around the world. And you have two, you mentioned you're a published author times two. So, two beautiful books, which are on my shelves. And it's like, from an outside perspective, a lot of our lives look like everything is just fantastic and amazing, but only we know what actually happens at home, behind the doors after you leave an event or clock out and you actually have to go home to this house that you built. And it's just interesting, to hear you were feeling like you're on top of the world, and we all saw what it looked like. But you, like you said, live in Barbados, and that, is something. You go from Connecticut to Barbados. So I'm curious to know, what was your turning point in knowing that the life you were living at that time just wasn't your ideal?
It was like a culmination of things. So like I said, on paper, everything looked incredible. And I had reached a level of success personally and professionally that I exceeded my wildest dreams. I had done the thing. But as I was growing my business, meeting new people, traveling the world, experiencing new things, I was really growing and changing as a person. That's unavoidable. You get older, you experience new things, and you add those new things to your toolkit in life, and you start to change and grow. And what I noticed in my personal life was that I was becoming really unhappy. Something was really off balance in my personal life. And it was difficult for me to come to terms with that. I was newly married. I had been in a relationship with my ex-husband for several years prior to getting married. This wonderful person supported me on my journey, supported me traveling all over the place, and was a great support system, especially in the early days where I wasn't making any money. He was there to help. And so I had committed to building my life with someone, but I was really changing as a person. And in those changes, I started to become unhappy in my marriage and in my relationship. It's really hard to describe what happens when you realize that you are changing and growing in a direction that's very different from the person that you exchanged vows with, the person who you promised to honor and love until death do you part. And there just started to become cracks in my marriage. And those cracks grew deeper and deeper. And I threw myself into work and threw myself into traveling around. And there was this one trip that I took. This is going to sound really hokey and woo-woo, but I need you to stick with me here. There was one trip I took to New Orleans to do a photo shoot, which would later be featured in my first book. And during our off time, we went to that big square in New Orleans. I can't remember the name of it, but it's where the church is. And there's lots of like fortune tellers there. You know, it's New Orleans. And I sat down and had a private tarot card reading. Well, first of all, she kicked my friends out and told them they couldn't stay. It was just me and her. And she read my cards. I'd only had this done once. And she told me, and this is before I even started to feel pulled away from my husband. She told me that my marriage would end because of my work and all the traveling I was doing. Now, Jamira, can you imagine?
Now, and then the part where you just said she kicked your friends out, like you, she wanted.
Did.
It's like, oh my gosh! And sidebar, like I've always wanted to get my cards read, but I'm like terrified of what they could say. So I'm living through you right now, and wow. Well, and let me just also ask: did she even know what you did or any backstory?
Nothing. I don't recall ever telling her anything personal about me. I think I was just asking her about my life and what she saw in my future, like a very open-ended question. And she told me that my marriage would end. Obviously, I had a ring on, so she knew I was married, that my marriage would end because of all my traveling and my work. And, you know, I walked away from that conversation. I remember we went to go eat and I was sitting with it and I was like, wow, that's so weird. She's so wrong. And I, at some point, confided in the friends that had gone with me. And it came full circle because that's exactly what happened. So back to the original story, there was just fragments in my marriage and I was deeply unhappy. I was growing into a different person, but yet the person that I had married remained constant and the same, a good person, a kind person, a supportive person, all around, just a great person to be married to, but not my person. You know, it's so hard to come to that realization where you suddenly realize that you married somebody who's good on paper and good in all the right ways, but they're not the person for you. What the hell do you do? I know most people may not take the path that I chose, and some people do, but it was a really difficult thing to sit with. And I sat with it for months, maybe a year. And of course, that feeling just grows and grows. It's like a cancer in your body. It just grows and grows and grows, and you become more unhappy, more unconnected, more scared, more anxious. And it really started to manifest itself then in the work that I loved and in, you know, the life that I had created separately from my marriage, my career. I started to become burnt out. I started to miss things with customers. I started not doing a good job. And it really took a hold of all facets of my life, a life that I tried to keep my career and my marriage separate, but they were just coming to a head. So I was in this relationship that on paper, just like my career, was fantastic, but it wasn't for me. And we had grown apart. We had grown in different ways in our lives. I had changed as a person. He had remained constant, and I couldn't see a way forward for the two of us. And I was at a turning point in my life. I was in my 30s. I had just turned 30. I was about to sign this book deal. I had no children, so I didn't have that situation. And I had a choice to make. Am I going to continue to be in this marriage that I felt like I didn't want to be in anymore? Or am I going to do the unthinkable thing and end my relationship with a wonderful person who I cared about very deeply, but who I was not in love with and who I didn't see a future with? Really tough.
Yeah, because I feel like you're at a crossroads because you make a great point. Like you didn't have children, so you didn't have, because a lot of people stay in relationships because of the children. And there are a lot of families that just aren't thriving because the parents aren't happy and they stay, quote unquote, because of the children. And it's interesting, like you said, when you're in your 30s, you start to feel like, all right, I'm an adult. So I need to make some heavy decisions that could change the trajectory of my life. And that's ultimately what happened with you. But one thing I also circle back to is I really do think it's interesting. Like you keep saying he was a great person, and I don't want to say take responsibility, but you definitely he was constant and I'm changing, and we're allowed to change. We're allowed to grow. The key is, are we all going to change and grow together and on the same path? Or is somebody going to go right? Somebody going to go left? Like, how does that work? And I know there's someone listening that is in a similar situation where they're not the same person that their partner married. Their partner is still showing up, still being supportive, still doing the thing, but they want to do something else, or they feel like they're coming more into who they're supposed to be ultimately. And so what do you do? And so now I want to know, Candice, what did you do once you decided like this ain't it at all?
It's really hard to be the person who makes that decision. It is really hard. And, I came to the conclusion that I had just followed the prescribed path for myself. We had been in a long-term relationship. We bought a home. We got engaged. We got married. And now we were like knocking down on the door of being pregnant and having kids. It's like the next societal progression in a relationship and in your life. And there was so much resistance from me. I knew this was not what I wanted. It was what I wanted, but I wasn't with the right person. And I had to come to a place where I could see beyond just myself, knowing I'm the bad guy here completely, but also knowing that this person that I'm married to deserves to have someone who's fully in it with them, who wants the same things, who shares the same goals, the same interests. I mean, we had grown so far apart. We didn't even have the same interests. We didn't like the same music. We didn't like the same food. We didn't have the same friends. I mean, it was really a disconnection. And I think part of what gave me the courage to say, I think we need to get a divorce, was looking at the person I was married to and understanding they deserved better than what I could give them. I couldn't show up and be the person they needed me to be. I had changed, and they deserved to have someone in their life who could be the wife that they needed and the companion and the partner that they needed. And so when this conversation happened, I remember that being a part of the conversation. Now, I'll take all the heat. I'm the one who made the decision. I'm the one who left. And I was nervous and felt guilty about that. But I knew that in my heart, he would find someone who would love him for who he was, appreciate all the things about him, and love his interests and just be his ride or die, his person. And if I were to stay in this marriage because that's what society told me I needed to do, or because I was too scared to follow my own feelings, I would be doing him a disservice of finding that person who was truly invested in him. So that was how I was able to come to terms with it. Now that's a prettied up way of saying I want a divorce, right? It sounds good in theory, right?
I want out. Yes.
It sounds so nice when you say it that way, but it was the truth. And I truly felt that. And the good news is that he was able to move on with his life in a really wonderful way and have all the things that he wanted. And that's what I wanted for him, is what he deserves. He's a good person. There's no reason for me to divorce him, right? On paper. He just wasn't my person. So I made that decision. I moved out. Jamira, I moved out of my home into a 1-bedroom apartment. Okay. I was paying $1,300 a month to live on the second floor of a 1-bedroom apartment. I had all these bills. I had this office, this team, all these events, and I'm going through this massive life change. The one thing that I did not expect, I thought that once I did this, I would be happy. Once I moved into that 1-bedroom apartment with all my shit, I would be happy. Well, spoiler alert, the guys moved me into the apartment. By guys, the guys I hired, and they put all my stuff where it was supposed to go. And they looked at me and they said, good luck with everything. And I said, oh, thank you so much. Shut the door. I'm in this 1-bedroom apartment. I haven't been alone in like 9 years. And I sit down on the couch that was in our previous home. And I looked around. And I was not happy. I was not happy. I looked around at all my stuff that I moved from the home we shared into this 1-bedroom apartment, and the happiness did not come.
Wow. Like I got a visual of these guys looking at you saying, good luck with everything, and then shutting the door, and then you're looking around like, okay. Because the interesting thing is you did take some things from the old house. So it's a constant reminder of what things, what used to be in some way, shape, or form. And let me just sidetrack a little bit. How did your family and friends react to you rolling out when, again, like you said, everything looks good on paper and your spouse at the time checks all the boxes and you're doing all these great things with work? Are they looking at you sideways like, what's wrong with you? Or did they empathize with you just not being happy?
My family were very sad. They loved my ex-husband. He's a great person. There's nothing not to love. They were very sad, but my mom understood. And she was about to go in through her own divorce. So she understood. They could see the changes happening. I wasn't home. I was out and about. I was making new friends. So they could see the changes occurring. His family, I really didn't talk to them. A regret of mine. We didn't really talk about it. I never spoke to them again. So, I don't know. I'm sure they probably thought I was nuts, although I'm sure they're happy now. And my friends, my personal friends, completely understood. They saw it happening. They didn't ever see him with me. And in part, it's because he didn't want to be involved as we got, along in my career in some of those things. He said to me, I already have friends. I don't need new ones. So you can imagine that was very difficult, and certainly a discussion that we had. But my friends understood. The friends we shared, yeah, they were his friends originally, became my friends, as happens in marriages. And, I don't speak to them. They're his friends, and that's okay. I think some people were surprised, but people who were paying attention weren't.
That's important. The people who were paying attention. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so let's fast forward a little bit. You are in Barbados and currently on, pause, lockdown?
Yes, we are.
Because of COVID. And so how the hell do you end up in Barbados of all places?
This is such a great story. So after my divorce, I'm in this 1-bedroom apartment. I've got all these things happening in my business. I went through a serious burnout. I couldn't get out of bed. Burnout. I was missing my obligations. Team was in the office. I wasn't there. And I decided that I needed to do something new and for myself. So I had connected at a conference with a woman from Barbados. I had traveled here a few times during my marriage and decided that I was going to winter here after my separation. So we got separated July, August, and I flew to Barbados with all my crap, all my Louis, 8 suitcases full of Louis Vuittons and makeup and clothes, flew here in November of 2012 and decided I was going to winter here, work from here, and just have an experience. I had never lived outside of the state of Connecticut. And I thought this could be something really different and good for me, meeting new people. And, I'm single. So let's see what happens. Well, that's exactly what I did. And I made great friends here, lifelong friends, new friends, and started to develop this second life. I had this life in Connecticut with my career and my friends and my family there. Then I had this magical oasis of a life in Barbados. And I stayed here until Easter of 2013 and then flew back and would find myself every 3 or 4 weeks coming here for a weekend, constantly finding myself back in this place. There was something about the people and the culture and the life and all the things I was experiencing that spoke to who I had become and continued to shape and change me into the person that I was becoming. And as you can imagine, visiting this place so many times, on one of those trips, on one of those vacations, I met someone. And that person was not the person that I laid awake dreaming about marrying when I was 12 years old. He was just completely different than anyone that I had ever dated, anyone that I had ever been in a serious relationship with. And I was smitten with this guy. Of course, now he's my husband, but I was just smitten with him and we started a relationship. One thing, of course, leads to another. We got very serious very quickly. And as our relationship blossomed and grew, we had a choice to make. I was fully committed to this man and he was fully committed to me. And we had to sit down and talk about our future and what was to come. So in the span of about a year and a half, I went from deeply unhappy in my marriage, leaving my husband, going through a stage of depression that knocked me off my feet. I thought happiness was going to arrive. It didn't. Through my depression, I buried myself in bed and buried myself in Barbados, trying to escape my problems and my unhappiness. And through that, I came out the other side meeting somebody who would be my person.
It's been a few months since I launched my signature course, Systems for Your Sanity, and I couldn't be more thrilled at the results of my students inside of the course. Systems for Your Sanity is the course that I created for you, Well-Rounder. It is the only course you will need to implement systems in your home life. We tackle meal planning and prep, a kick-ass systems for laundry, even ways to prepare yourself and your kiddos for the upcoming week. With all that we have going on, it's nice to have a system in place so that we can take advantage of time with our families and time to grow our businesses. So head over to systemsforyoursanity.com and take a peek around the course.
What was the most challenging part about uprooting your life from Connecticut to move internationally to a place that, you were, and it's cool that you actually were going back and forth visiting and it just started to feel more like home. But then you have to leave your home, the home you've known forever, and your family and your friends and the business that you built, and then go live on an island. So how challenging was that?
It was actually really easy. And that's the interesting thing. I had this big business, team, office, responsibilities, events, clients, brand. My book was coming out at that point, my first book. For me to make the decision to move to Barbados and be with Jason was a very easy one. It felt natural. It felt intuitive. It felt like the best decision I could ever make. That doesn't mean that I didn't have nerves about it. When you go through a relationship and it fails, you are always a little more cautious in the next relationship that you take because you don't want it to end in the same result. But we sort of were fast and furious. We got married in less than a year and I moved here permanently in 2014. It was one of the simplest, easiest decisions I ever made. And fortunately enough for me, I was able to figure out how everything would work. I made the decision and then I had to make other really tough decisions about how my business would function, what I would do, if, give people options if they wanted to leave the company or stay, rethinking how I was going to work, the customers I was going to work with. But it all came together. And so I think that's an important lesson that when something feels right, and something feels just in alignment with who you are and what you want, and it's just fitting together, I believe that the universe does deliver all the other things that need to be worked out and sorted out to make that thing happen. There was so much resistance in my past relationship and with my business, but this felt completely different. And like I said, it was one of the easiest decisions I have ever made in my life. And that's how you know it's right. I mean, that's how you know you're in alignment with where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm not a religious person. I know you are, Jamira. I'm not. But if I could, just use an analogy, I just kind of gave it up to God to figure out all the bits and pieces. Not everything would be seamless or perfect. I would have to let go of some things. There would be trade-offs, but it worked. And, thinking back to that time, we're talking 7 years ago, I can't recall one crisis or one moment that made me question whether this was the right decision. Of course, there were problems and, you had to navigate moving your stuff and putting it in a container and waiting for it to arrive, and the business aspect of things, starting a sister brand here while my business continued to exist in the States with my team who said yes to staying, all of that. I can't think of one major crisis that occurred or one major hurdle. Sure, there were problems. There were things we learned, mistakes and lessons, but nothing that weighs on me, nothing that would change the outcome of where we are today.
That's awesome. And you just mentioned your sister brand that you did start in Barbados from a planning side. And you no longer, if I'm not mistaken, have that, you don't deal with wedding planning at all in any shape, way, or form.
No, ma'am.
So why did you decide to close the sister brand? I mean, obviously, I know you sold your business in Connecticut, but you technically could have still did weddings in Barbados because that was your jam. That's what you were doing. Why did you decide to just give it all up?
Well, I sold it all, and I decided to sell it all because the business was all intertwined and I wanted to sell it all. There came a point in my life, just like back in 2011 and 12, where I started to become unhappy again, but this time with the work that I was doing. And just like in 2011 and 12, I had to take my own time. I had to be on Candice time to figure out what my next move was. I didn't decide right away that I was going to sell the business. I had spent 12 years of my life doing this work, and my identity was wrapped up in doing this work. I had books with my name on it. People were hiring me to coach them. I was, people were seeking me out to do the work I did in my business. So, I didn't know if I could actually do something else and have a life outside of the business that I had for 12 years. It was my identity. It was my career. I devoted all my time to it. But I also knew that I was unhappy and getting burnt out from the work that I was doing. I was changing again, as we do. This time I wasn't changing with my partner, not changing with me. I was just recognizing what I wanted out of my life in this new season of being in my later 30s, wanting to start a family, and not wanting to work, quite frankly, every freaking weekend on someone's wedding. I wanted to have ease in my life, less stress. I wanted less responsibility. So I had to spend some time thinking about my next move. And, in life, we can just continue to be in relationships, whether that's in a relationship with our business or a relationship with a person, long before that relationship has expired. I think everybody listening to this can think about a romantic relationship, a friendship, a career, a business that you just stuck into too long to the point where you really burnt out and the thing that you love so much slowly dies. I didn't want that for my business. I wanted to see it continue on and flourish. I just couldn't be the person to do that. So I approached one of my team members who'd been with me through that crazy divorce, through all the things for 10 years. And I said, want to buy the business? She said, yes. So then, of course, we had to figure out how you sell and buy a business. We had no freaking idea how that all works, but we figured it out. And in October of 2019, we signed all the fancy papers, went out to lunch, and toasted to the end of that chapter for me and the incredible beginning chapter for her. And once again, just like leaving my marriage, I had a little hard time. I thought I was going to be happy, but happiness came later. But just like leaving my marriage, just like finding my husband today and, closing my business, selling my business, I had to do it on my own time, but things came together to show me what my next steps were, whether it was the universe, the tarot card reader, God, whatever. The universe was sending me signals and messages. And this time around, I really listened from all the lessons before. I really listened and I made a decision. When I made that decision, everything once again fell together. Very few issues and problems, the normal stuff. But overall, I'm so much happier today than I was in 2018 when I was just grinding so hard and not loving the work I was doing.
Yes, I love that. And a lot of people really have no idea how hard, labor intensive, tiring, exhausting mentally, physically being wedding planner is, or even just being in the wedding planning space. You don't have your weekends at all. And myself and my husband both had jobs that were weekend based. And then when you have children and you want to be at their events, well, they're usually on the weekends. You have to make a decision at some point. And we wanted to be present. But when you do build something so great as you did, at some point, you either have to scale it, you have to sell it, you have to make a decision in some way, shape, or form, or you will get burnt out. And so I just think it's great that you sold it while you were still at the top of your game, and then you were able to start something fresh and anew. And so one question I have now is, in your new role as a business coach, a mentor, boss lady, podcaster, and all the things, like what is your main role? Like what does a day-to-day look like for you in this new chapter of your life?
Yeah, my day to day is based on what I want to do that day, which is so freeing and so wonderful. I'm able to set incredible boundaries that I felt like I couldn't set in my previous business. I'm in startup mode. I've been doing this for a little over a year full time. And so for me, I'm building and growing and doing business stuff, which I just love. I'm starting to grow a team, but I don't feel beholden to my customers anymore. I have to show up and be responsible, of course, and I meet my obligations and responsibilities 100% of the time. But I'm working with a different set of clientele who are business owners. Jamira, they get it. They get that I need, I shut off at 3 and I don't work on Friday because that's my choice. So these days, business looks a lot different. I feel energized and rejuvenated. I feel like my cup is full and I've got good boundaries. My day to day is whatever I choose it to be. If I want to go have lunch, well, then I go have lunch. If I want to just work in my jammies, I work in my jams. So it just is a completely different lifestyle. And I have to say, I absolutely love it. I'm loving, loving, loving it.
I can just feel the energy as you say it and the giddiness. And that is just amazing. And honestly, it's the same reason why I shifted, because I felt called to do something else. I felt like I could serve and use my experiences from being in the industry for, over a decade. And it's okay to now pour into other people and love on them and show them the way so that they can work smarter and not harder. And I know you have a very amazing membership group, and you pour into those ladies all day, every day, in the sense of you make yourself available to them. You're very transparent and you make it easy for them to ask questions so that they can thrive and really do their best job, as a wedding professional. And so I think that's great that you didn't just necessarily just put a pin in it, but you found a new way to use your skills and resources that you have gained over the years. So that's amazing. It's amazing. And so what has been the most rewarding part of walking in your purpose over the past few years?
Oh gosh, the connections, the relationships. I think for me, the most rewarding part is getting to be a part of someone's life, whether that was when I was planning weddings or now as a business coach, getting to be a part of someone's life and create an impact on their life, help them to take a step forward to their dreams and goals, to help them build something that can give back to their meaningful life. So for me, the impact is the most rewarding part of the work that I've always done. I've just shifted the impact from helping customers plan special occasions, memories, and moments in their lives to now helping women build and grow a profitable business that is in alignment with who they are, their purpose, their customers, and the kind of life that they want to lead. So for me, it's definitely the impact. And I know, Jamira, you feel the same way, getting to show up here on your podcast and impact people through the stories of others and your own story is just, I mean, there's no greater feeling than helping someone.
Right. And so, yeah, like 100% when I think about it, like we can selfishly do things for ourselves, but when you coach someone and mentor them and create resources and content for them to help them grow their stuff, that is just a great feeling to know that you're showing up for people. Love that. And so reflecting back on your life, what advice would you give yourself or just someone listening that maybe in that similar position that you were in where you just knew it wasn't it was uncomfortable, it just was skill, or you're outgrowing friendships or relationships or jobs? What advice would you give someone that needs to make a change?
Well, this will sound really basic, but it's true. Listen to yourself, listen to your intuition. My intuition has never steered me wrong. Sometimes it screamed at me and it's had to shake me and hold me down for me to listen because I'm resisting. But we know what's best for ourselves. We know what's best for the life that we want. So if you're finding yourself struggling right now in a relationship, in a friendship, in a career that is not serving you, you know that. Take the next step. And if you have to, think about the person on the other side. When I was selling my business, one of the main reasons why I wanted to sell it was because I wasn't showing up and serving my customers in the same capacity I should have been. And the people on my team who'd been with me for years deserved to have a leader who was all in and wanted to continue to grow and scale for their sake. That wasn't me. Just like in my marriage, I knew that I wasn't the person for that person. And in my business, I knew that I wasn't being of service anymore to my business, to my team, and to my customers. They deserved better. So if you even have to go to that place where you look at the thing that is not serving you, where you're not showing up anymore, really serving that relationship or that thing, think about the person on the other end and what they deserve. Your spouse deserves somebody who's all in. Your friendships deserve a friend who's all in. And your career, whether you work for someone or you are an entrepreneur, your business or the business you work for deserves somebody who is all in and present. And if that's not you, then give them the opportunity to find someone who will be all in.
I love that. Evenly yoked with someone and a partnership. I love all of that. And so, Candice, as you know on this show, we do not believe in the word balance. And you manage your thriving coaching business. I mentioned your podcaster, which love so much. I'm curious to know, though, what is your definition of living well-rounded?
This is such a great question. And I love all the answers that the guests give. I would give two: be open to change, but also set really firm boundaries. In order for me to be well-rounded in my life, I need to be open to things changing and shifting, as you've heard throughout this whole episode of my story, but also to setting firm boundaries. I think boundaries are so stinking important, and we need to be ruthless with our boundaries.
Amen, amen, amen. Boundaries, I'm telling you, it's not a bad thing and it's not a me thing. It's just something that you have to do if you want to be productive, if you want to protect your peace, and if you just want to get things done. You have to learn to set boundaries and say no to what doesn't make sense at the time. So I love that answer for sure. And so, what are you most looking forward to in this next season of your life?
I don't know. Things feel so uncertain right now, as is the whole world. So I'm just looking forward to continuing to do the great work that I'm doing. I set a goal this year that I want to impact the lives of 100,000 entrepreneurs. So I'm looking forward to all the amazing people I get to meet and the things I get to teach through my story or through things I know. So I guess that's what I'm looking forward to in this season, is just the open-endedness of it all instead of, and I'm a control freak, Jamira. So for me to say that, this is like,
We're like the same person, Enneagrams and all. And it's like the fact that you're just like, I'm so open. I'm like, man, that's really good.
that's growth. That's growth. I would never, usually I'm a lady with a plan. I got a 5-year plan, a 2-year plan, a 90-day plan, but I'm looking forward to the open-endedness of it all. I think the possibilities for all of us are limitless. There's so much opportunity. Even when you feel like there isn't, there is. So I'm looking forward to receiving whatever the universe has in store for me, whatever God will give me. I'm just here to receive it, and I feel good about it.
I love that. No, I will take that. And it's funny because that's kind of where I'm trying to lean in this year. We make so many plans and we want to check all the boxes, but it may not be where we're supposed to be. And so I just love the idea of fully committing to just receiving what is supposed to be yours and receiving whatever, he or universe, however you want to say it, is throwing your way. Receive it and be okay with it, knowing that it's going to lead you to where you're ultimately supposed to be. So, amen to all of that. I love it. I love it. So, Candice, we're going to have some fun.
Yay.
Rapid fire questions. And so, it's funny, the one question that I always start with, you're stuck on an island, but you're technically
I am stuck on an island like right this second.
real life stuck on an island. Lockdown. So you're stuck on an island. What are 3 things you must have and you can't take your husband, who, by the way, I have met, and he is awesome. He's such a great guy. So you can't take him with you on this island. What are you taking?
Okay, so if I'm not taking my husband, I'm taking a bottle of rosé, some music, and maybe a good book.
Good. I love that. Just simple and to the point. So when you were little, Candice, and people were asking you, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? What was your answer?
I wanted to be an interior designer, and I wasn't far off from that. I planned and designed beautiful spaces that were very fleeting. So,
yes. And that's the one thing. Like, I love, love, love your designs and how just creative you are. So I could totally see you being an interior designer.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
What's your favorite food?
Ooh, pizza.
Yes, we can do pizza all day. Your not favorite, but your dream vacation destination?
I would love to go glamping in the Sahara Desert, but with like all the bells and whistles. I want butlers. I want caviar. I want, the Milky Way. I want it all.
All the things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, love it. So when you're not working, how do you spend your time?
I love to spend my time with my husband, with friends, going out to a restaurant, having drinks, reading, relaxing, and sometimes doing absolutely nothing, just zoning out on Clubhouse on my phone, watching a good crime docuseries. I'm a huge crime junkie. So a little mix of this, a little mix of that.
What is a misconception that people have about you?
That I'm perfect. I am so not perfect.
If someone were to play you in a movie, who would you want it to be?
Ooh, I've never thought, people always say that I remind them of that girl from American Pie with the with the curly hair. And she also is in this great new show, which I've watched a few episodes of, but I can't recall the name. You guys know who I'm talking about. She's white. She has curly blonde hair and she kind of has a raspy voice.
Love it.
Yes. Oh, I know. Natasha something.
Okay, I'm going to have to go Google her. She's looking like these days. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Don't take out a credit card at the Gap, Victoria's Secret, Bath and Body Works, all the places.
Listen, all of them. Yeah, that Victoria's Secret. That was before the whole pink collection came out, what the youngsters are wearing now. But yes, thought I was doing something. Mm-hmm. What's your guilty pleasure?
Reality TV, Bravo Housewives, Jersey Shore, like anything naughty. I love all of that kind of stuff.
Yes, we both love our Bravo Housewives all day, every day. And what is something on your bucket list?
The Sahara Desert, glamping, $25,000 for 2 nights. I want it all. Give it all to me. I want to be on a camel, like Sex in the City, and like couture. That's my bucket list.
All the things. I know you, and I know you're going to make it happen.
Thank you.
So make sure you Instagram tag me so I can live through you.
I will. Maybe you just come with me and we'll do it together.
I'm with it. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, Candice. So where may our well-rounders connect with you, find you on the web? Where are you hanging out these days?
I would love to connect with you. So if my story resonated with you, and listen, if you're going through a similar situation and you want to talk to somebody about it, my door is open. So just email me. We can have a private conversation. And if there's any advice or support I can give you, I would love to do that. You can find me at CandiceCoppola.com. It links to my podcast, The Power and Purpose. And I hang out on Instagram. I don't do Facebook. I am on Twitter, but there's should come with a trigger warning because I'm like a hot mess over there. But I'm over here on Instagram. So DM me, let me know you listened to today's episode. I love to follow people back and get invested in your lives and see what you're up to. So we can definitely connect there.
Love it. And also her podcast, The Power and Purpose podcast, as I mentioned, it's amazing. I was a guest a couple episodes back. And so check that one out and just binge the podcast because it's filled with such great information. And she's very much active on Instagram and Clubhouse. So if you are using Clubhouse, you can always find some great insight in the chats and rooms that Candice posts regularly. And so, guys, thank you for hanging out with us. And Candice mentioned her door is open. So if you feel like you need to just have some support, she is definitely your girl. She keeps it real and she's an open book. So reach out to her. So thank you, well-rounders, for hanging out with us. Thank you, Candice, for being a guest and a friend. I so appreciate you. And until next time, you guys, remember to stay safe and stay positive and focus on what matters most. Bye.
Friends, thanks for kicking it with us this week. Remember to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode airs. I'd love it if you leave us a review and share this goodness with your squad. Until next time, seek a well-rounded life and remember to focus on what matters most.